Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and this is our weekly COVID update for Westchester County. This is Tuesday, September 8th, the day after Labor Day, and we're happy to be here in our county office building to give you the update on numbers and then take any questions. We have News 12 in the building with us, and then if any of the friends in the press have any remote questions, they should contact Catherine Chaffee over the course of these next 15, 20 minutes of the update, and we'll be happy to answer those as well. And then if there are any questions to follow, then you can reach us afterwards, and we'll be happy to speak with you. We're doing, as we have now for the last couple of months, weekly updates. If something comes along in the area of COVID-19 that we think is important enough for us to give an update during the week, we'll do that, but we'll avoid the daily updates unless we have reason to do it more frequently. Our numbers today that have been established, the New York State COVID-19 Department of Health tracker shows that we now have 37,314 total positive cases year to date for COVID, and the year really started 6 months ago in the first part of March. Of that 37,314, 36,742 have cleared the 2-week incubation period. So it leaves us with 572 active cases of COVID as of today. Now, it's important to note that we have been testing more in Westchester County over the last month or so than we have previously, and the more you test, the higher number of positives you get. We have routinely done anywhere from 3,500 to 5,000 tests a day, and even at a 1% level of infection, which is a very low level of infection, a good indicator of a reduced infection, you're still getting somewhere between 30, 35 to 50 positive cases a day, and it takes 2 weeks for them to clear the circumstances. So the overall number of active cases at 572 is a higher number than we have seen over the last number of weeks. But the very good news is that the other two indicators of spread are the number of people hospitalized for COVID and the number of fatalities. And the last number that we have on hospitalization dates back to Sunday, and that was 28 people being hospitalized for COVID. And that is a very good number. We have been sort of static in the mid-30 range, low 40 range for a number of weeks. And now over the last number of days, the last week, we have now dropped down into the 20 range of individuals who are hospitalized for COVID. And a hospitalization case is a more severe case. So a person can test positive, but it gets severe when they go to the hospital. And at 28 cases, we think as a percentage of having 572 active cases, that hospitalization rate of 20-some-odd cases is really very good news. And then the final bit of good news is we had no overnight fatalities last night. We have had year-to-date 1,452 fatalities for COVID, but that number of 1,452 has stayed static since a week ago Sunday. So we've now gone 9 days without a fatality in Westchester County, and that obviously is very encouraging news. If you look back over the last 2 months or so, we've had really less than 24 fatalities, and every fatality, I always want to say this, is a human being lost, is a family member lost, is a person loved who's lost. However, when we had nights, again, of 35, 45 deaths back in the peak period, late March, early April, it was a compounded tragedy, and this continues to show that the indicators that at the moment, the spread of the virus is being managed. And I never say controlled because we don't have the ability to control it because we don't have a vaccine and we don't have an antiviral treatment. And when you have those kinds of things in place, then you can control the problem. Right now, we're managing the problem, and we manage it through masking. We manage it through social distancing. We manage it through hand washing or sanitization, and we manage it by the way we handle our services and facilities, so that as a county government working in concert with the state government, and we'll go into some of the details in a second, we're trying our very best to manage these situations. Just to give you one example, which I'll touch on in a second, we just closed our 4 county pools from operation. The normal operational season for our county pools is the last weekend of June, and it closes the Labor Day weekend. So we've had them open for that duration of time. And during that whole period of time, which is slightly over 2 months in duration, we've had no spike or incidence of COVID transmission outside of this normal amount because our pools were open. And we worried about how are we going to open the pools. We set up 2 separate sessions, a morning and afternoon session, which is not the way it normally handles. Normally you go to the pool, you can stay there all day. We took that break so we could sanitize all the public spaces, the railings that you use to walk into the pool and elsewhere around the pool site. And we were concerned before we opened the pools that if we didn't do it right, if we didn't manage it right, we could increase the virus transmission. So we're very happy to report that in that particular area, now that it's come to an end, pools are closed. Public pools are closed here in Westchester County, the county-owned pools, and that's Saxon Woods, Wilson Woods, Tibbetts Brook, and Sprain Ridge, that we were able to do it successfully. Now, opening a pool is complicated. Opening a school district is way more complicated. We'll talk about that in a second. But that is what I mean when I say manage the level of infection. We can't stop it, and the more we test, the more we get a higher number of people that test positive. But the higher number of people that test positive, if they don't make it to the hospital and they don't make it into a fatality situation, then we feel like we're managing it well and things are going well to this point. We've tested 207 cases, 567,207. If you assume a base population of 1 million people in Westchester County, which is about right, that comes out to 56.7%. Now, we know that there are duplicate tests and triplicate tests in there, and probably some more than that, where people have been tested multiple times. But we don't think that that number approaches 10,000. So we think that it's a realistic thing to say that over half of the people of Westchester County have been tested for COVID, and that is a good sign because the public health professionals say, how do you combat the disease? Testing, identifying positives, isolation, having the healthcare infrastructure available for people who get sick, and then you manage any of your open facilities as professionally as you can to reduce the infection. So at 567,000, we think that's a very strong number of testing. That number is continuing to rise every single day, and it's a very positive indicator of what the commitment is for what we're doing. And at a ratio where we've gone now 9 days without a fatality, we think that's good news as well. So we're hopeful. But now we're entering into an area that's going to be very critical and very important. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Let me address the issue in Pleasantville that came up a week ago, because we know that's on everybody's minds. You're aware that a week ago, slightly over a week ago, the Holy Innocents Roman Catholic Church in Pleasantville, there were 3 individuals, 2 priests, 1 staffer that were tested positive for COVID-19, and there was a great concern that we would see a spike coming out of that situation because they had parishioners in church for 2 day masses and then a whole host of weekend masses on Sunday, August 30th, which is a week ago this past Sunday. Right now, we have tested over the weekend 205 of the individuals that we believe were present for one of those masses. It's also a Holy Communion, first Holy Communion event, and of all of the test results that have come back, about half of the 205 results have come back. Everyone has been negative. So right now we have not gotten a single positive out of that incident in Pleasantville. The 3 individuals who work in the parish, 2 priests, 1 staffer, tested positive. Right now we have no other individuals. Now, half of the tests haven't come back yet, and we have to see just how many more people who might have been exposed come forward to be tested, and that's obviously what we've encouraged. If you were at Holy Innocents Church during that week, this is the week that began Monday, August 24th, if you went to a day mass or to any other event around the church, we want you to get tested. Phelps Hospital, located in Sleepy Hollow, has made testing available, easily available for people. You have to identify that you were part of that. And obviously, the people who have been tested, who have come back negative, still must quarantine, and that's important. Most people figure I tested negative, I'm fine. The incubation period of the disease might not yet have come to fruition when you were tested. So it is possible you're negative at the point today, but you might yet down the line exhibit symptoms. And so you should isolate and you should look for symptoms. And symptoms would be cold-like symptoms, things that high fever, high consistent fever, things of that nature that would tell you that there is something serious that's developed. But right now we're very encouraged. It's very good news. But, my nature is always to be kind of cautious. I never parade around with good news because you never know when things might be a slight bit different as the next day goes by. So we'll look at it cautiously but positively that the Pleasantville situation has not generated a spike. And some of the indicators, I've just referenced them before. We look for the number of people hospitalized, the number of fatalities. We look for the total number of people infected, and we look for the number of active cases. We also look at how many people were infected as a percentage of a given day. So if you've tested 3,500 people and 35 people tested positive, which means 3,465 were negative or something like that, that's a 1% infection rate, and that is also something we look at as a good number. And then the final thing we look at is geographic distribution. We want to see whether a spike that might occur in any community is more broad-based. We would not be surprised if you have a spike in Pleasantville that it would be reflected in some of the adjacent communities because people, have relationships, friendships, cross lines, folks know each other. We would look to see if it was in the four corners of the county. And I've often used Pleasantville alliteratively with Pelham and Pound Ridge and Peekskill because they're in other parts of the county. So we're looking at all of those indicators to see whether or not this thing is spreading or not. Right now the news is good, but we take proper care, we go forward. So that hopefully addresses the Pleasantville. I'm happy to take questions on that when the time is right. So now New York State, Governor Cuomo has allowed schools to open. Some of the Westchester schools have made a decision to start remote education, which means students not in the classroom, not in the school building. And then a number of districts have done a hybrid plan in which some of the students are in the building at some of the times and then home remote at some of the other times. This is a difficult task to do under any circumstances. Now, we've talked before about some of the decisions we've had to make about opening a beach, opening a pool. In the original start of this pandemic, do we open our golf courses and do we allow for Bicycle Sunday? And each one had its own complexity. When you open the office buildings, when retail businesses open, big stores, little stores, restaurants, outside and then inside, all of those posed logistical problems. The school system to this point is the most complicated, fraught with concern opening that we have. First of all, because we have multiple buildings that are under the control of each school district. There are 44 school districts in Westchester County. Yonkers has 27,000 school children. New Rochelle has 11,000 school children. These are numbers that dwarf anything that we would ever have at a golf course or a beach. And it's an everyday scenario. So this is serious. Also because in many communities, the school-age population represents anywhere from a quarter to a third of all of the residents in the community, of the families in the community. So if you go down the street and you have 21 houses on your street, well, something like 3, 4, 5 of those houses have school-age students in them. So if something were to happen, it would affect the community at large in a very profound way, in a much greater way than it would affect it at a golf course, public golf course. So with that, the school superintendents, we've had weekly conference calls with them, and it is a great challenge for them, and we show great respect to those school superintendents through the school boards in each of those communities, the parent organizations, the teacher organizations, including their local unions, the administrators, the other service workers who work inside a building, people who work in the cafeteria, people who work on the maintenance staff. All of those individuals involved in the school setting now are having to go through a protocol unlike anything they've done before. If you remember, we shut the schools down entirely back in March. We made that original decision from the county government under emergency powers. The governor, emergency powers superseded that shortly thereafter. But at the time we shut schools down, the whole society was shut down. We shut down all businesses everywhere. Now those businesses have reopened. Jobs have reopened. Moms and dads now can go to work, and students are going to be dealing with a remote learning situation to some degree. This is something we've never seen before. This is unprecedented. The governor, who has the authority to do this, has tasked the school districts with providing meals and also providing child care arrangements, and that puts a great burden on the school districts in each of the communities. The smaller the district doesn't make it easier, but it's a less complicated format. If you go to the smaller municipalities, we have school districts with 1,600 students, Blindbrook, Rhinebeck, others like that. But when we get to the larger districts, it's more complicated. The county's role in working with schools. First of all, let me tell you what we don't do. The educational function, how teachers are going to educate, how they're going to cover coursework, what kind of testing is going to be done. All of that educational supervision comes from the state of New York, the state education department, the Board of Regents. And the governor, of course, has some role and involvement to play, and so do our friends in the state legislature. The county does not have responsibility nor direct authority for any of the educational academic functions. What we are providing is the public health function because of our county Department of Public Health. So where we step in to be helpful, the first thing we've done already, which is training, we've done some videos and webinars to try to help schools in the process of reopening. We've been very fortunate that we've had our Deputy Commissioner of Mental Health, Joe Glazer, who has stepped in to work on some plans along with coordination with Dr. Joseph Ricca, who's the superintendent of the White Plains School District and has served as a leader of a consortium of school superintendents. But that work group, which includes people from public health, DPW, and other departments, have worked to put together a series of webinars, videos, which have been circulated that deal with contact tracing. It deals with personal protection equipment, PPE, the acronym, facilities and systems, how to sanitize properly the various facilities within the school, particularly kitchens and cafeterias, all of this to create a standard that every school district would know what the standard is and how to be able to implement it. And the county was helpful in putting that together. So each district didn't have to think of it on their own. The state did not have those protocols in place. That fell to the county to do that. That we have already done, and that process started over a month ago. We are involved directly with the school districts in contact tracing. Contact tracing, you may have heard the phrase before, you may know exactly what it is, but if you don't know what it is the detective work that comes after a person is identified as having been positively infected by COVID. Who are the people that you have seen over the last 2 weeks? Because whomever I saw, wherever I stopped to get morning coffee and chit-chatted with the person over the counter, whenever I stopped at a grocery store and interacted with a sales clerk, those are people who might have been infected by my having the infection. So contact tracing is to contact each person who's positive, you isolate, but also identify the other people that you've had contact with so they can monitor their behavior, isolate as necessary, and that's not always necessary in every case, depends on the nature of the interaction. But it's a time-consuming process, and for some people it's obtrusive. Somebody's calling you on the phone, did you see John Doe, and how did you see John Doe? And those issues are not easy to do. But we have trained people to do that within the county government. We put together a team of over 800 people capable of doing it in case we have maximum infection. And we're providing that service as an initial outreach to the schools. And then at some point in time, the state system takes over for contact tracing if we have a much more significant outbreak. But in any school on any day, just as we've talked about the church in Pleasantville, wherever a positive outbreak occurs, 1, 2, 3, maybe more people, teachers, students, administrators, service personnel, whomever it may be, the county will be there to try to assist the schools in contact tracing to identify how that whole process is going to go. And we'll do the interviews and the follow-up. The testing is a component of that, but the county will try to be helpful in that. What the county's also been prepared to do is provide a certain amount of PPE for each school district so that they have a certain base supply. Probably, the school districts are going to have to buy their own and have it on a regular basis because it's a large number of people going there. But they need some to put in a storeroom in emergency cases if their purchasing structure falls down, and we're going to provide some of that to each of the different schools. Also, we have been helpful in trying to fit key workers with N95 masks. Now, I have sort of a basic surgical mask that I wear. Obviously, I have no style. All of the friends who are here in the room have stylish masks on. The other fellow in the room who happens to be here, same thing as I did, grab a mask and let's go. But the N95 masks are particularly important because they have to be personally fit around your nose, nostril, and mouth. And that's very important for certain school personnel to have. And it's not a quick or easy process, and the county is involved in helping those key people be fitted for N95 masks. That's being done this week at White Plains High School, and we appreciate, once again, the White Plains School District being a partner with us, but we're doing that for all school districts around the county. So we're trying to step in and being helpful in some of those situations. There are also some major school districts in the county that rely on the county Beeline bus system for transport for their senior students, high school level students. That's in Yonkers and New Rochelle and Mount Vernon. We have retrofit buses. We showed you that a week ago. We've fit buses with certain protections that will help the bus driver and the passengers, and that will apply to school children when they use it. But those major districts right now are going on remote first. They're not yet in the classroom setting. But that is also a county action that we've taken to try to be helpful in all of this process. So with all of that put together, in addition to thanking those who've stepped forward to do these things, we're going to be tested. And I've made the analogy more than once that opening schools is just like starting the Major League Baseball season. We open it up, we have protections in place, and now we'll see how it operates, and hopefully it'll go well. And if anything goes poorly, we're going to have to be prepared to shut it down. Those decisions will be made ultimately on the basis of public health, but they're going to be tough decisions if they've been made. And we made those statements when we were dealing with parks, that if we had infection ratios that followed us having a park open or a facility open, that we would shut the system down, and we'd have to do that. So the same will apply, but we approach it optimistically. We know that our young people need to go through an educational process. Those 12 years are important to get you from, grade 5 age 5 walking in the door in kindergarten to age 18, diploma in hand, onto college or onto the rest of your life. And each of those different years, what you learn in each of those years is critical. And one builds on the next. So we can't afford just to shut a system down and say, let it stay shut for as long as it takes. Those are critical development years of children. So we have to try to figure out if we can do this properly. And we know that nothing is more important to us than our children. I have a grown child now. She's going to celebrate her 35th birthday in a couple of weeks. I have grandchildren now who are school age. But no matter how important our jobs are, no matter how important our houses are, the cars we drive, and the clothes we wear, nothing matters more to us than our children. And our children are the ones going to school, and we are going to be as diligent as we can to make sure that they're as safe as they can. And if for some reason that safety is not possible to protect, then we'll take a different strategy. We are not going to be tied to ideology. We're going to do what's practical, and we'll do that in concert with the governor making the decisions of authority, with the school districts implementing them, and the county being a partner with the school districts and trying to help them implement it. In the area of gyms and health clubs were shut down in the original shutdown of the society back in March. And as we opened phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 and different things opened, gyms and health clubs did not open. The governor made an announcement about 3 weeks ago indicating that 2 weeks ago, just on the cusp of the last week of August, I think it was the 24th of August, but it might have been a different date, in which gyms and health clubs could open, but they had to put together a safety plan, and they had to be inspected by the county health department. And then we were very fortunate to reach out to local governments, the municipal governments, towns of, cities of, villages of, and asked to get assistance from their local building inspectors to come with us, our staff, our Department of Health staff and our Consumer Protection Office staff, to go out and do the inspections so that we're looking at what's the best protection, health protocols in the gym, in the health club, in the yoga studio, whatever was qualified under this area. We normally inspect pools to begin with, and now with the added expertise of local building inspectors who generally know about heating, ventilating, and air conditioning issues, together we're able to sign off and allow those gyms to operate. The gyms could open, put a plan together, and then they had to be inspected over 2 weeks. That 2-week period ends today. All of the inspections have been completed. Over 90 of them have gotten the official sign-off from the material that's been submitted, and the remaining group, slightly over 100, have completed the inspection, but they're waiting to get the sign-off from their plan. And when their plan is submitted, which outlines how they're going to protect them, then our gyms and health clubs will be open. New York Forward, which is a state structured program, has a website, and they have to affirm that they will follow those guidelines. And then, of course, our public health department will track whatever may happen in there, and should we have an incident, and should that require a shutdown of the facility, we'll be willing to do that. But for those of you who have gone an extended period of time without going to the health club, most everybody I know who's fit has a health regimen that generally includes a gym or a health club, and they've had to compensate for that during the period of time that it's closed. They're open now, and we hope that they'll stay open, and they'll continue to be a part of the economy going forward. I've mentioned our various parks, and I mentioned already that the pools have closed now. Our beaches normally close on Labor Day weekend as well. We have 2 beaches that are operating now, Playland Beach on the South Shore side and Croton Point Park Beach on the Hudson River side. The 3rd beach that's county-owned is Glen Island. That's been out of commission all year because we turned over the whole Glen Island complex to the state for testing purposes, which it is still using for that purpose. So we lost the ability to use Glen Island Beach all year. But we have Playland and we have Croton Point Park, We have managed those two parks the same way as the pools, well managed. I don't take personal credit for this. I give credit to Kathy O'Connor, who's the Commissioner of Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, Peter Tartaglia, the first Deputy Commissioner of that department, and all of the many managers and people all throughout the system, the 55 parks we have that have gone out of their way to make sure that we could do things such as having some summertime programs for kids in our various nature centers. And we're going to talk about an increased program in that area in a second. We managed to get through those 6-week periods safely, healthy, no major spike, no major incidents. And so now we're going to keep the beaches open for 2 more weekends. That's an added opening. And we're trying where we can to extend those things that we can to give people a little extra benefit, because we know we had to shut down Playland Park, we had to shut down the ethnic festivals, no fireworks, things that we lost this year. So we try to compensate by doing some additional things. Keeping the beaches open the next 2 weekends is one of those steps. So Saturday and Sunday, this coming Saturday and Sunday, the following Saturday and Sunday, Playland Beach will be open, Croton Point Park Beach will be open. We hope you'll enjoy it for the last couple of weekends. It's technically the fall, but it still feels a little summery out there. So hopefully that will work. We have had a tremendous turnout for Bicycle Sundays. We opened it as we normally would have the first weekend in May, and we kept it going except for the 2 holiday weekends of Memorial Day and July 4th. And now we're going to continue it through to October, the first weekend in October, which is the normal termination date. But we kept it all July and all August. So that was an added benefit for those folks who go out there and use that. And there were some concerns when we first did this. At the time, you have to go back now 90, 100 days to when we opened it, and people were saying, oh, there's going to be a spread. No spread happened. We were able to manage it. Not because we're geniuses, but we figured it out. And so far, we've been fortunate that things worked our way. So we're very appreciative of our staff for doing these things, and we'll go through 2 more weeks of the beaches, and then the beaches will be closed along with the pools. We'll take Bicycle Sunday to the first weekend of October. That will shut down, but we do have plans to go forward in a couple of other areas. We are working now on plans to have the Winter Wonderland Festival, which usually opens right after Thanksgiving and goes through New Year's, as a drive-through event rather than a in-person walk-around event. We're working out logistics on that. We'll see if that can happen. I think it will. We've got some plans that we'll announce in the coming weeks at Lasden, which we think will be exciting. Again, same situation. We're having to work around the COVID changes of everything. And we're working now with 3 of our county nature centers, Cranberry Lake Preserve in North White Plains, Lenoir Preserve in Yonkers, and the Trailside Nature Museum in Ward Pound Ridge Reservation up in Cross River, to provide a nature-based early learning program. And this is targeted for the youngest of children during this period of time. These are pre-K options. Pre-K options are very limited now, and with all the other things we have going on with K-12 education, each of these different programs will have pre-K efforts. They start in September. Later in September, they'll go in some cases to October, in some cases to November. There's a tuition involved in it. You can get registration date and details on our website. They're not quite ready yet, but westchestergov.com will get you there. And if you are a parent of a preschool child, this is a helpful thing, particularly if you have other children in the house and you're trying to juggle how they're going to work. This is an opportunity for them to at least have a couple of hours a day, 9 a.m. to 11:30 in most cases. Lenoir's program is in the afternoons, 3:30 to 5:30. They have some targeted times and targeted grades. Rather than try to explain all of that in this setting, go to the website and take a look at it, and you'll get an idea of what's happening. Once again, an attempt to be creative to try to open up some options with all of this. I'm going to touch on one other topic today that's not COVID-related. That's 9/11. We are now a couple of days away from the 19th commemoration of the tragedies that happened at the World Trade Center, at the Pentagon, and in the skies over Pennsylvania. This year, we will remember 9/11 as a county in a virtual capacity. There'll be a number of us who will be in person at the sculpture, The Rising, located at Kensico Dam Plaza, and it will be a virtual commemoration, so those that want to will be able to go on and see it online. We'll have some speakers. We'll have the reading of the names, members of the Board of Legislators, other elected officials, and family members where they're available will be part of that. We usually have an in-person event. It's very emotional because of the people we lost. Not only the people we lost that day, are the people that we've lost subsequently because they have 9/11 related diseases that cost them their life prematurely. A lot of people who voluntarily worked on the pile breathed substances that have caused them to have an early demise. And that is as tragic to lose somebody before their time as it was that horrible day in September of 2001. Next year will be the 20th anniversary, and God willing, we will commemorate that momentous number in person. And for many of us of a certain age, it seems like this happened a week and a half ago. It's really fresh in our minds. For some people now, those who've graduated high school recently, they don't have a memory of 9/11. And that just shows you what the passage of time does, something that's so intrinsic. My parents talked about the Pearl Harbor attack, something they lived through as young people. I wasn't alive then. I was alive during the death of President Kennedy or for the Challenger explosion, and 9/11 supersedes those memories as being sobering. So we're going to try to do justice to the moment. I believe we're at 3 o'clock, 3:30?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock on Friday, 9/11. And if you go on our website, you'll get information about how you can link in and watch our ceremony. I would mention that many communities who normally have in-person 9/11 commemorations, some of them are shifting to virtual ones. White Plains, Rye, Larchmont, Mamaroneck are all doing virtual online events. There are some that will be live in person, but they're limiting, as is the requirement from the governor, to 50 people in attendance. We know that Yorktown and Somers and Poundridge will have limited type sessions like that. Portchester, Mount Vernon City Hall in the evening, Portchester at Lyon Park. But we all experienced 9/11 up close and personal in this area. We all had friends, not all of us, but many of us. I certainly did have friends, people I knew from my home community. A person who I worked with in this building when I was in the legislature, who I saw every day, died that day at 9/11. So it's something where I think we want to make sure that we remember and we never forget, and that's coming up at the end of the week. So with that, it's been a long presentation, hopefully filled with some substance, and let's open it up to our friends in News 12. Any questions that you may have?
Hi, thank you. Just one more question about Pleasantville.
Mm-hmm.
You gave a very thorough update, but you did mention contact tracing. I know that people didn't register when they arrived, so can you maybe share with us how that was made possible without people actually having their names on any list?
Well, there's a tremendous external communication effort made to all of the parishioners at Holy Innocents, because while we don't know who went to daily Mass or who may have attended Sunday Mass that weekend, they do have a list of all their parishioners, and in many cases emails and a way to outreach to them. And then there was public notification within the community using social media and so forth. If you attended this Mass, please call this number, come over to Phelps, get a test. And while it's not possible to know with 100% perfection who might have been in the room, who might have been a visitor that day, particularly for the First Communion event, which drew family members from other places to be in the room. So it's, I think every effort has been made, and it's continually a talk. As I talk to my friends who live in Pleasantville, our county attorney is a Pleasantville resident. It has been the talk of the community to try to encourage full turnout. So we think we're going to come substantially close. And the partial information we have today, which is that of the people that were tested, none came back negative, is a very encouraging thing. Now, we know that you have to sort of get into the details of the Catholic religious service. I happen to be Roman Catholic, so I'm familiar with it. But sanitation of the hands before communion, no touching during the sign of peace granted and so forth, reduces the amount of contact you might normally have. And people often cluster after a service in every faith tradition, and that didn't happen. So we're hoping that those things mean that we'll go without any significant spike. But we're not out of the woods yet. So the next few days may reverse the numbers that I'm saying. But so far, that's the sense of it. And I think the public information outreach without a list of members was as thorough as it could be.
As far as future services, are there any changes that will be made?
There's been discussion with all religious institutions, in this particular case the Archdiocese, which will make those decisions on behalf of all of the different congregations. Some places are having sign-ins for people when they do come in person. I personally would not mind that if somebody expected me to sign in before I walked into it, or or be stopped and questioned by somebody, have you had any illness? Have you had a run of fever at all in the last few weeks? But I'm not sure that every single religious institution has implemented those things. We have spoken with the Westchester Jewish Council. We've talked to our friends in the Muslim community as well, and then many of our friends who are also in Christian denominations other than Roman Catholicism. And we as a county government can't impose any of this. We don't have the authority to do that. The state will want to do things on a macro level, regional level, if not a statewide level. So we'll see if they come up with arrangements whereby, the archdiocese of those structured organizations, the Episcopal Church, Anglican Church has a similar type structure, and where we can't do that, to do everything we can. Because, as church services resume in the fall, there's a lot of people that might spend time away during the summer. We expect there's going to be a rise in church attendance. And so the potential for this to happen anywhere is still there. And so hopefully, we have the infrastructure to handle it. It's going to be difficult as you go forward. It can be done in the short term. And what I think happens is it really depends on the structure of each of the different religious institutions. There are certain churches, many of our African-American churches are not part of a larger structured organization. They may have affiliation through clergy groups, and they can make individual decisions. Many of them are having virtual services in order to protect it. And what we also see is that if you did a very broad demographic slice, you'll see that many of the church-going population and synagogue-going population are older folks and more subject to concern about this. So it's going to be an institution-by-institution decision. And since we can't impose a decision, what we are doing is having an active dialogue with all those different groups and try to be ready. And I do think that this outbreak in Pleasantville has had an immediate effect on various institutions, that they're not discussing things. Everybody was making plans and doing things to try to reduce the spread. But I think now, because of the urgency of it, it's become more prominent. You're welcome. Catherine, do we have remote questions?
We have one from David Cropper.
Yes.
With active cases on the rise, how worried are you that active cases will only increase following Labor Day and the start of school?
I think there's a legitimate fear for that, and that's why we monitor it. But I did indicate, and let me repeat it again at the risk of being excessively boring, the number of active cases is an indicator. What it does mean is that more people are testing positive today than have satisfied the 2-week incubation period and are leaving the active list. So if you go back 2 weeks ago, we might have had 25 cases that were new and fresh. They've gone through 2 weeks. Now we have 31 cases yesterday, so that means there's 6 more active cases today than there was yesterday. And that was not the case for most of the time that we've been tracking this. We've had almost a steady diminution of active cases. So the active case number is jumping up. It could be for a couple of different reasons. One of them could be that we're testing more robustly, and even with a low percentage of infection, we're catching more people who have the disease, so therefore those numbers come up. What we're looking at is, okay, we have active cases now that have been on the rise, a steady rise, not a spike rise. What other indicators do we have? The other indicators are day-to-day infection rate, 1%, slightly above, generally lower. What's happening to a hospitalization rate or hospitalization numbers in absolute numbers? They have been slowly decreasing, almost in steps, coming down in buckets of 10. And what's happening to our fatalities? And in the fatalities, we're seeing minimal, no fatalities for 9 days, minimal. So the active number is concerning, but now we're looking to see, do other indicators give us an additional reason to be concerned? The number of active cases alone is not necessarily the problem. And then, as I said earlier, if we see a spike, if we go tomorrow and we have all of a sudden 110 new active cases, that will jump through the roof. Where did they come from? Did they come from a school setting? Did they come from a church or some other institutional incident? And as I also said earlier, are they geographically spread around the whole county? If we go up 110 cases in one day, or worse, which is what we had back in the peak period of time, is it spread out all across the county? So if we have a higher infection rate than 1%, significantly high, 2%, 3%, if we see it's geographically spread about, if we see that not only have active cases go up, but our hospitalizations are going up, and we're starting to have more fatalities, now we reach the point at which do we start closing things back down, or do we start reassessing where we've gone? We don't know that yet. We're not at that point yet, but I want you to understand the thinking of what goes into it. So active cases is an indicator. We don't pull punches. We tell you what the statistics are. If something's going up, we tell you it's going up, but we also put it into the context of what's the other information we have, and we assert. If all the indicators start moving in a certain direction, then we're going to take more direct action. At this point, we're not at that point because we haven't had other indicators also reinforce the one statistic that's gone up. Okay. With that, I thank you very much. I try to make this as interesting as I can for those of you who are here and at home. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if we do have anything striking that occurs in the next few days, we'll certainly reach out. We'll do a forum like this. We're happy to answer your questions at any time. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. Be safe.